Cuban authorities and people in general hold a daily vigil to pay tribute to the victims of the Saratoga Hotel accident in Havana within the context of the two-day official mourning decreed in the Caribbean nation. In the United States, 18 Democrat senators asked President Joe Biden to lift the unilateral course of measures against Venezuela. Hundreds of demonstrators gathered in Mali's capital on Friday in support of the government junta, the national army, and the military cooperation with Russia. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Neil Martin, from the TeleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. Cuba held an official vigil in honor of the 46 people dead resulting from the accident at the Saratoga Hotel on May 6th. The activity that was called by the Union of Young Communists took place in the Fraternity Park in the country's capital. There was a wide participation of the people and the authorities of the country who accompanied the relatives and friends of the victims. With the phrase "always with us" and a funeral instrumental music, the attendants lit candles and offered flowers outside the hotel where the tragedy that left 46 people dead and hundreds injured due to a gas leak occurred. Queen of the United Kingdom Elizabeth II sent her condolences to the President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, and the people of the island after the explosion at the Saratoga Hotel in Havana. The British monarch expressed to be deeply saddened by the tragic loss of life and injury caused by the explosion in Havana. Her Majesty the Queen says her thoughts and prayers are with the victims of the tragedy and their families. The iconic Saratoga Hotel suffered a powerful explosion when a tanker carrying liquefied gas was serving its facilities. The explosion caused the demolition of the front and side facades of the first two floors of the hotel and damaged other adjacent buildings. A funeral home in Cartagena, Colombia delivered the coffin with the body of Paraguayan anti-drug prosecutor Marcelo Pesci to be transferred to Paraguay. Pesci was shot to death execution style while honeymooning on the Colombian Caribbean island of Baru by attackers who fled by sea. The commander-in-chief of the Paraguayan National Police, Gilberto Fleitas, told the press that they are investigating whether the anti-drug prosecutor was followed from Asunción by his killers. Fleitas recalled that Pesci was handling very important cases against members of organized crime involved in money laundering and drug trafficking. Paraguay's president denounced the crime as a cowardly murder, and a fellow prosecutor said the modus operandi was reminiscent of the mafia. In Brazil, organizations and social movements commemorate on Friday the signing of the decree that abolished slavery in 1888. Slavery ended in Brazil with the so-called Golden Law. At the time, there were more than 700,000 slaves in the country. On this occasion, the Secretary for the Fight Against Racism of the Central Unitary Workers Union, Antalina Lourenço, warned that racial discrimination in Brazil is structural and governs almost all economic and social relations. Lourenço said the date should be observed as a day of reflection on the real living conditions of Afro-descendants, among which, according to recent studies, unemployment is 71% higher than among the rest of Brazilian citizens. In Chile, the National Corporation for Indigenous Development, known as CONADI by its Spanish acronym, urged lumber companies to withdraw and return the territories for which the Mapuche have property deeds over. In this regard, the corporation director said they will carry out the necessary negotiations so that the lands are returned to their original owners. He said that the communities also have the right to express and define their development model. Meanwhile, government authorities announced on Wednesday that they will double the budget of CONADI from 16 billion to 35 billion pesos for the purchase of lands in the regions of Biobío, Araucanía, and Los Ríos. It should be noted that those territories correspond to around 39 clearly marked lots that will benefit 19 Mapuche communities. Pope Francis announced that he will visit Canada in July to offer a public apology for decades of violence against Indigenous people in Catholic boarding schools. The Vatican Press Office explained that the Pope will visit Ottawa after accepting invitations from civil and ecclesiastical authorities, as well as from Indigenous communities, in order to ask for forgiveness for the violence against Native peoples by the Catholic Church. The office pointed out that the leader of the Holy See plans to visit the cities of Edmonton, Iqaluit, and Quebec, where he will hold individual and public meetings and visit orphanages. The government of the United States acknowledged that the problem of milk formula shortages in the country will not be solved in the short term. Brian Deese, the top economic advisor to the White House, explained this Friday that the scarcity of infant formulas worsened after months of shortages in pharmacies and supermarkets due to the fact that the transnational company Abbott, one of the main producers, had to withdraw a significant proportion of its stock following the death of 2 babies who suffered bacterial infections after feeding them. The insufficient supply available has raised prices and caused tensions in families, as many U.S. mothers return to work almost immediately after giving birth and depend on formulas to feed their infants. The federal government stated that it is working with the remaining manufacturers on a plan to increase production. A group of 18 Democrat senators urged Joe Biden's administration on Thursday to eliminate the unilateral coercive measures imposed on Venezuela. The senators remarked that the lifting of sanctions would be favorable to promote a new approach to the relations with the Caribbean nation based on dialogue. They criticized that the president's strategy of force has achieved nothing more than the generalized suffering of the Venezuelan people. The text exposes the economic difficulties that Venezuela has suffered in recent years, using data published by the United Nations and UNICEF, which state that the sanctions have been one of the main causes of these tragedies. Republicans in Congress rejected any possibility of easing sanctions and reiterated that Washington's policy towards Caracas has already been adopted. We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi, and welcome back to From the South. The heads of defense of the United States and Russia, Lloyd Austin and Sergei Shoigu, respectively, held telephone conversations on Friday to discuss the conflict in Ukraine. Moscow's officials explained that the telephone contact between the two top high-ranking officials was made at the request of the White House, and the conversation between the United States Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and his Russian counterpart Sergei Shoigu, issues of importance for international security were discussed, including the situation in Ukraine. On this point, the Washington's representative demanded the immediate cessation of the special military operation being carried out by Moscow in the Donbass. On many occasions, the Kremlin denounced that the United States and NATO are promoting the conflict in Ukraine by providing military assistance to Kyiv. In a telephone conversation with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Ukraine is blocking negotiations with Moscow aimed at settling the conflict in the Donbass region. On that conversation, the two leaders assessed the progress of the Russian-Ukrainian talks and discussed humanitarian aspects of the situation in Ukraine. Putin gave details of the military operation in Mariupol, which he says aims at protecting the population of the self-proclaimed republics of Donetsk and Luhansk. In this regard, the Russian head of state and the German chancellor agreed to continue exchanges on these issues in order to resolve the current conflict. At least 27 people died and dozens more resulted injured on Friday in a massive fire at a building in New Delhi, India. The blaze broke out on the first floor of a 4-story commercial building in West Delhi in the afternoon, but its cause was not immediately clear. Around 60 to 70 people have been rescued from the building, but its third floor has not yet been searched, so more bodies are expected to be recovered. Many of the dead were poor migrant workers earning a pittance and sleeping at the factory. Fires are common in India due to poor building practices, overcrowding, and a lack of adherence to safety regulations. Protests continued outside the president's palace in the Sri Lankan capital of Colombo as people continued to demand the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa despite the appointment of a new prime minister. With one brother president, another prime minister, and three more family members and cabinet ministers, it appeared that Rajapaksa family consolidated its hold on power in Sri Lanka after decades of in-and-out government. But as a national debt crisis spirals out of control with soaring prices, fuel and food shortages, and lengthy power cuts, Sri Lankans have been protesting for weeks, calling for both the Rajapaksas to step down.
The people at this protest site and the rest of the country will not accept a person who is implicated in the bond scam being appointed the Prime Minister. This is a betrayal of the mandate. This is completely in violation of what the people wanted. This is a disrespect towards the mandate of the people. The Ranil Rajapaksa partnership will be devastating to this country.
China withdrew as the 2023 Asian Cup host due to the coronavirus, football officials said on Saturday. Chinese football officials informed the governing body that they would not be able to host the 2014 competition, which was to be staged in 10 cities in June and July next year. No new host nation was named, with the AFC saying that next steps related to the tournament would be announced in due course. Authorities in China are pursuing a strategy of stamping out the virus entirely, which includes rapid lockdowns and mass testing, and millions in Shanghai have faced onerous restrictions for more than a month. South Africa is experiencing a surge of new COVID-19 cases driven by two Omicron subvariants, according to health experts. The new increase in COVID cases is coming as the country enters the southern hemisphere's colder winter months, along with the rise of cases of flu. South Africa's new cases have gone from an average of 300 per day in early April to about 8,000 per day this week. South Africa's new surge is from two variations of Omicron, BA.4 and BA.5, which appear to be very much like the original strain of Omicron that was first identified in South Africa and Botswana late last year and swept around the globe. The new versions appear to be able to infect people who have immunity from earlier COVID infections and vaccinations, but they cause generally mild symptoms.
So I've not really seen a peak, but normal. So we could really be at the beginning of a wave. And if you look at the earlier waves, we saw that the increase was quite smooth at the begining. So I think we could be seeing that. But again, we need to look at what the numbers are telling us. And so just the number of positive cases doesn't really tell us much, because how the people that come for testing changes with time. People got tired of COVID, so now I think a lot of people do not go for testing. So just the number of positive cases, we need to take them with a pinch of salt.
We have more news coming up after a final short break. Please stay with us. Hi and welcome back. Hundreds of demonstrators gathered in Mali's capital on Friday in support of the government junta, the national army, and the military cooperation with Russia. The demonstration was held in the city of Bamako's Independence Square and also denounced the West African sanctions against the nation, the presence of the military forces of the United Nations Organization's mission MINUSMA, and the rejection of France, which militarily occupied the country until January this year. After January's demonstrations requesting Russia for support, the European occupation forces announced their withdrawal, while the Russian forces, in line with the legitimate cooperation between states, became increasingly present. Somalia prepares to elect a new president on Sunday. Analysts said the country's political uncertainty is coming to an end now that the long-awaited electoral process is underway. Somalia registered a record 39 candidates for the presidential elections on May 15th. The election is well over a year behind schedule, marred by deadly violence and a power struggle between President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, better known as Farmajo, and Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble. The vote is expected to draw a line under a political crisis that lasted well over a year after Farmajo attempted to extend his rule by decree, triggering violent street battles as rival factions clashed in the capital, Mogadishu.
This electoral process that has been so protracted offers a reset button. Most electoral processes in Somalia offer, optimism, hope that there'll be change. And I really believe this one, specifically because it's been so protracted, offers a reset button. There's a lot of hope and optimism that there'll be change right after. The country is very polarized at the moment, and you're expecting that whoever comes in will work towards reuniting the country.
The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, reports that 18.5 million children are currently out of school in Nigeria, a figure that has risen since 2001. The head of UNICEF's office in the Nigerian city of Kano, Rahma Farah, said that numerous attacks on schools by criminal gangs in the north have created a precarious learning environment that has discouraged parents and guardians from sending their children to schools. Since the terrorist group Boko Haram abducted 200 schoolgirls in the northeastern town of Chibok in 2014, dozens of schools have been targeted for similar mass abductions. According to UNICEF, last year about 1,500 students were kidnapped by gunmen. While most of the young hostages have since then been released for ransom, some still remain in captivity by the armed groups. Thousands of Muslim and Christian Palestinians from Jerusalem's Al-Quds and from across the occupied territories, including many colleagues and fellow journalists, paid their respects to veteran Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. On Friday afternoon, Abu Akleh's body arrived at the Roman Catholic Church where prayers were held for her soul before it was transferred to the cemetery where she was buried next to her parents. The churches of Al-Quds rang their bells in conjunction with the funeral amid heavy presence of the occupation police and military roadblocks in the roads leading to the resting grounds. Abu Akleh was highly regarded by viewers across the Muslim world, particularly in Palestine, where she was at the forefront of covering Israeli crimes and the occupation for more than 2 decades. Earlier on, ahead of the church service for Abu Akleh, dozens of mourners tried to march with the casket on foot out of a hospital near the old city. However, they were met with violence by Israeli police. Israeli forces hit mourners holding the casket with batons, almost causing it to drop before eventually allowing it to be moved in a hearse. Al Jazeera reported that Israeli forces arrested at least 4 mourners during the procession, including at least 2 for raising the Palestinian flag in occupied Al-Quds. Occupation forces threw a flash bomb and tear gas against the crowd and used tear gas against the crowd. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas said that he would take Abu Akleh's case to the International Criminal Court himself in an effort to get justice for the veteran reporter. Five people were killed and 7 resulted injured by an Israeli airstrike in central Syria. The Syrian army's anti-aircraft defense units shot down most of the Israeli missiles fired from the Mediterranean Sea against some points in the central region. The aggression, which was perpetrated with missile rounds at around 20 hours local time, caused the death of 5 people, including civilians and children, and 7 resulted injured with great material losses. According to local media, several fires spread in the forests of the countryside of the referred location due to the falling of the pieces of the intercepted enemy missiles. United Arab Emirates' late President Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan is laid to rest in Abu Dhabi's Al Bateen Cemetery just hours after his death was announced. The funeral prayers were conducted in accordance with the Muslim tradition by his expected successor and half-brother Mohammed bin Zayed. The Ministry of Presidential Affairs announced an official mourning and flags to be flown at half-mast for a period of 40 days beginning Friday and suspending work in ministries, departments, federal and local institutions and the private sector for 3 days. Sheikh Khalifa took over as the UAE's second president in November 2004, succeeding his father as the 16th ruler of Abu Dhabi, the richest of the Federation's 7 emirates. We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at TeleSUR English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Dio Martin. Thank you for watching.